So in this lab, I'm going to discuss the concept of a default gateway. This is common to any network connectivity. Every host has to have a default gateway. And the purpose of the default gateway is to provide a connection between the local subnet and a remote subnet. If you've got host 1 and host 2 here, and they're communicating with each other, or say there's even a server on that layer 2 switch, they don't require a default gateway, since packets are staying within the same subnet. The other thing to keep in mind is with a default gateway, you can have several default gateways on a router or a layer 3 switch, since each VLAN and subnet require its own default gateway. When I say VLAN, a VLAN is assigned to a subnet, so they're synonymous. So in this example here, I've only got 2 hosts, and they're assigned to the same subnet, 192.168.1 subnet, and this is the .1 host, and this is the .2 host. So the default gateway would be the nearest layer 3 device, and that's the router, since it can read IP packets and do routing. And note as well that any devices that is layer 3 can also read frames, since it's a layer 3 device, so it can read anything below layer 3 as well. So the default gateway for these hosts is the LAN interface gig 002 on R1. That's in the same subnet as the host. So what will happen is anytime any traffic is going off of this local subnet, say it's going over to 172.16.2, the services of the router are required for doing a routing table lookup. So all traffic will be sent or forwarded to this gig 002 interface on R1. And from there, the router will then do the routing and packet forwarding to get the traffic to the server. And going over to the layer 3 switch, I've got 3 servers here, and each of these are directly connected to the layer 3 switch. So each of these servers has its own default gateway. It's actually a software interface or a VLAN interface configured on the layer 3 switch. It's a logical interface. It's not this gig 102, 103, and 104. It doesn't work like that. For a layer 3 switch, the gateway is actually a VLAN interface. So you've got 3 servers, so you're going to have 3 different default gateways, since there are 3 different subnets connected to that layer 3 switch. And what you'll find is more common in a data center is, can you imagine if you have a layer 2 switch in a data center, because there's so many VLANs, I would put a layer 3 switch between this layer 2 switch and this router. Next thing I would do is configure a bunch of VLAN interfaces, and I put them in the same subnet as these hosts. And what would happen is the host would then just forward that traffic to that VLAN interface, and from there the layer 3 switch would do the routing. That's typically what you get in a data center. You have a lot of VLANs and a lot of subnets. And that concludes the lab.